process of a reintroduction. So let's get it done. All right. Okay. Okay. Yes, good girl. Place. Sit. Yes, that's a good girl. Here. So what I'm doing right now, right, is working on what we call barrier control, right? And the reason why that's important is because for many different reasons, but specifically when it comes to a front door like this, right? And let's say you guys have a guest come over, she's out running around loose. You don't want to have that anxiety, right? That she's just going to push past you and run out in the street, right? So what I'm communicating with her right now is that she must follow me into or out of a barrier, which means she has to get permission from me, right, to cross this barrier. And what that looks like is, as opposed to her running through the door first, right, what I'm communicating is, when I cross the barrier, that doesn't mean you cross the barrier, right? So what I'm gonna do, once I cross the barrier, then I give her permission to come into the barrier. So again, that's very important. I'm sorry, this is my wife. My wife, she's in here.
Hi, how are
Yeah.
you?
So
Hi,
again,
how are
that's
you?
very important.
Close this one?
Yes, you can close it now, yep. Because again, we just want to have that confidence knowing that we can open that door and she's not just going to go run out in the street and obviously possibly hurt herself or something bad can happen, right? So now as you can see, she's getting excited, right? Happens every time I bring a dog home, right? It's very similar to us, like if we went away to boot camp or something like that and we come home, now it's like, whew, I'm home, right? So all of those emotions, right, and behaviors that are associated with the sight, sounds, and smell of your house is starting to come out, right? So now what I have to do, which is why I said no touch, no talk, no eye contact, because as soon as what most people do, oh my God, I missed you, now that's fostering all of those behaviors that we took the last 3 weeks to not fully erase, but to control, right? So now what we have to get her to understand is everything that we worked on at my house now applies here with you guys, right? Now, that is actually fairly easy for her, right? Believe it or not, if we set it up the correct way. What's gonna be hard is for you guys to change your habits with her, right? That's the hardest part, right? So my goal today is to give you as much information as I can without giving too much, right? And not that I don't want to give you the information, but of course, too much information can cause you to have what we call analysis paralysis, right? You got so much information, you actually get paralyzed because you don't know what to do, right? So my goal is to give you enough information to make the transition easy, and then once you guys get the hang of that, right, that's where the 3 follow-up sessions come in, then I can take you to the next level, right? So that's the goal today, right? So, I tell people all the time, and I think I may have told your sister when I met her, it's not really my job to train a dog, right? My job is to rehabilitate the dog, get the dog back to being as close to what a dog should be, right? And then teach you guys how to train the dog. But I do put a solid foundation, right? So that way it's easier for you guys to keep building on that, right? So now what I want to do is kind of show you some of the mechanical techniques that I use to redirect her brain, right? And then obviously the mechanical things that we worked on as far as the sit, the down, all of that stuff, right? Just so you guys obviously can keep that going, right? So the first thing I wanna is my concept of what I call picking up the telephone, right? And basically what that means is, right, the leash, or this is the telephone, right? The cord, how we used to have the cord, now we got cordless phones or cell phones, so we don't have the cords anymore, but back in the day we had the cords, right? So this is the cord, and she is at the other end on the other telephone, right? So for an example, if I tell her to sit, so Kaali, right, she's not paying attention, right? Which I expect that because she's still excited. She's in an excited state of mind, right? So what I'm not gonna do is Kaali, 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 because you see, she's not really responding to it. And what that does, that devalues the command, right? So if I want her to sit, right, I'll say, Kaali, good girl, sit. Now, the good thing is she gave me her attention when I called her name, right? So that's what I call doing the least to get the most, right? And basically what that means is the first thing I'm always going to do is give her the opportunity to respond to the least amount of, what's the word I'm looking for? To the least amount of stimulus, right? That, I believe that's the word I want to use, right? And all that means is if I call her name and she doesn't respond, the next thing I'm going to do is pick up this telephone, which means you're not responding to me verbally. So now I have to use a physical source to redirect your energy back to me, right? So, and I'm kind of waiting on a moment where she kind of gets hyper, right? To where I can show you what that looks like. So as a matter of fact, we're going to move closer because I know she's going to, right? So now we're a little bit closer. She's pulling, right? So in a situation like that, I call her name and she doesn't respond. It's going to be Kaali, right? That little tap on the leash, right? Because all that's doing is it's a physical reminder that, oh, he needs my attention back here, right? Does that make sense? Yeah. Okay. At any point, if you have any questions, just cut me off because I'll keep, I'll keep going. So, so that physical touch is just a, hey, I'm over here, good girl, right? As soon as I get that eye contact, that's how I know I have her attention, right? So again, if I call her name, she doesn't respond, and I'm calling her name because I want her to sit, I'm just gonna tap on the leash, good girl. Once she gives me that eye contact, then I can tell her to sit, right? The most important thing about that is I must have her brain before I have her physical, right? And the reason why I'm emphasizing that is because a lot of the time we're trying to communicate with the dog and their brain is not with you, right? Their brain is hyper-focused on something else. Like for an example, I know you guys, when you walk her, sometimes she may be barking at a person or something like that, right? Even when I came in the house, it was just excessive barking, right? And at that moment, anything you would have said to her, over her head. She doesn't hear any of it, right? So now we've been working on that to where now she's much better at when you call her name, right? She'll stop. Or depending on the situation, you say no and she'll stop, right? And really all that is just redirecting her brain back to you. That's the most important thing about a dog because dogs are very impulsive by nature, right? They're very reactive by nature. They have to be because they're predatory animals, right? And if you understand how predatory animals work, in nature, if, like for an example, if a tiger is hunting a group of gazelles, right? And they miss the gazelle that was in front of them. If they spend so much time dwelling over the gazelle that they just missed, they're gonna miss the next 15 that just passed them, right? So they have to live in the moment in order to survive. So a lot of that reactivity is her nature. And then also you have to take into account her breed, right? She's naturally a defensive dog, right? So the challenge with dogs that have a high defensive nature, they tend to have the tendency to look at everything negative, right? Are you bad? Are you coming over here to hurt me? What's that sound? Is that gonna hurt me? Right? So then that turns into anxiety. So what we have to do with her is teach her by way of socializing, by way of desensitizing her to, certain things in the world that, hey, it's okay. That thing over there is not gonna hurt you. It's okay, right? But how we do that, we don't do that by saying, good girl, when she's, because when you do that, you're reinforcing that bad behavior, right? Which is what most people do. They say, oh, it's okay, it's okay. No, it's not. No, it's not okay. What's not okay is for you to act like that towards that thing that's not doing anything to you, right? So the better way, and I'm just kind of giving you the examples because it's hard to, create those situations, if it's not in real time. But the best way to let her know that it's okay is you say, hey, stop it. It's okay. Right? And then when she calms down, that's when you say, good girl. Right? So does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah, so really what you're doing, you're doing reverse psychology. Whereas we tend to humanize dog, we tend to humanize dog emotions, not realizing that humans have a much better ability to use discernment than dogs do, right? So we can look at something and we can empathize with people, right? And because we have that higher level of discernment, it's easier for us to determine, right, which way to go. Dogs don't have that. Like, they have very little of it. So empathy for a dog is actually confusion, right? So that's where a lot of dogs like her, it proliferates the bad behaviors because we feel bad that, oh, why do you feel that way, right? As opposed to saying, hey, you don't have to feel that way. Does that make sense? Yeah. So any questions?
Quick question.
Yes.
So if she's not, like, if we don't have a leash on her, and
Okay.
she's like, she's just walking around the house and we have a person come over,
Yes.
and she starts barking and everything, how do we redirect her attention then?
So that's what I'm going to recommend is, do you guys have, because the other leash, you guys had like it's like a slip lead. Do you have like a static leash? And I'm going to actually leave this retractable leash with you guys.
Oh, we actually started off with one of those, and then she broke it. She chewed it out.
Yeah. So I'm going to show you, and again, it's hard to show things that she's not doing in a moment. But the best way, right? The best way to counteract that, don't pull the leash, right? Because when you start pulling, that actually entices her to pull more, right? So you know how you try to pull it out. Tug of war, there you go. The best thing you can do is just lift up on it.
Okay.
Right? Two things. One, she cannot chew on the leash and not breathe at the same time. Does that make sense?
Okay.
So as barbaric as that sounds, right? The reality is pulling like this, trying to get her to let it go, is actually rewarding the behavior. Because now you're playing with her.
Yeah.
You don't think you're playing with her, but she's playing, right? So when you do this, it's no different than having a rope and doing the same thing, right? So in that moment, that calls for a correction, not a reward. Now again, I know you guys are not thinking of it as a reward, but to her, it's a reward. And then the truth of the matter is, in moments like that when they are doing what I'm gonna call like red zone behaviors or dangerous behaviors, because that same biting on the leash is the same nipping that she was doing. It's the same thing, right? The only difference is she's redirecting it on the leash, and when she doesn't have the leash, she redirects it on you. So it's the same behavior, right? So that's why you have to correct that. So if you notice, she hasn't bit on the leash at all, right? Because I corrected that from the gate, right? So does that make sense though? Yeah, so you have to correct that behavior as opposed to reward it by, doing this, right? So so the question was if she's not on the leash, right? So what was I saying? Oh, I was saying leave the leash on her, right? I always say for at least 2 weeks. Because what that does, that gives you guys enough time to kind of set the new rules, boundaries, and limitations. It gives you much easier access to her, as opposed to when she doesn't have the leash on, then you gotta try to, you see that becomes more play for her, right? Now, if she doesn't have the leash on, the first thing you never wanna do is chase. because then
She thinks she's playing.
it becomes a game, right? So what you have to do is more of a stalking type behavior as opposed to chasing, right? And what stalking looks like is, let's say, and this is almost a perfect space to do it, right? You want to do your best to get her in a space to where it's harder for her to escape.
Like corner her?
Corner her. But you have to be strategic about it, right? You don't want to do it aggressively. Because what you don't want is to create fear in doing that, right? All you're simply trying to do is decrease the amount of space for her to operate, right? So if it's in this room, right, all you're strategically doing every time she tries to go one way, nope. She tries to go the other way, nope. But every time you do it, you're closing in on her, right? So if she's going this way, nope. She goes this way, nope. You see how I'm closing in on you? But I'm doing it strategically, and I'm not doing it, no, right? You see what I'm saying? The energy is different, right? So the most important thing when you do that, you have to stay calm, right? Because if you go in frustrated, right, she's gonna read that. And then what she's gonna do, she's gonna shut down, right? And that shutdown is the worst thing for her. Because then she doesn't learn anything from the moment, right? So the most important thing with that particular technique is you must stay calm. And sometimes it's even better, especially if you realize you're frustrated, because I'm a trainer and I get frustrated, right? So I know it's gonna happen because we're human, right? So this is where we have to be aware of how we're feeling in the moment, especially in intense moments like that, where she may be out of control, because it's gonna happen, right? It's gonna happen, you can't avoid it, it's gonna happen, right? So, and the reason why I'm saying that is because I don't want you guys to think that it's gonna be perfect from now on. It's not gonna be perfect. She's still gonna mess up, you guys are gonna mess up, but that's okay, right? Because that's a part of the learning process. You see what I mean? So yeah, so with that particular technique, it's important to stay calm, and every time she moves, nope, nope, right? And just kind of make yourself bigger to, you know, give her the illusion that, oh, she can't escape. And essentially what you're doing, that is a correction, right? If you've ever, I don't know if you guys have ever looked at dogs, and you may have seen it in some of the videos I sent you when she was with the other dogs. Dogs do the same thing, right? So I learned that technique from looking at dogs correct other dogs, right? If you ever see like a dominant dog, they will always use their body to block the dog when they're correcting them, right? So I use that same technique in situations like that when a dog is off the leash and I'm trying to get to him. I never frantically try to chase him. I almost act like I'm not even trying to deal with it, right? I just kind of strategically, nope, can't go that way. Nope, can't go that way. As soon as I get close enough to where they can't go anywhere, sit, right? Just like that, all right? And that's how you handle that situation.
Okay.
Yep. Any questions on that?
No.
Okay. Is there something specific that we didn't go over so far that you want to address while we're here?
I remember one of your videos you talked about there's a way to like correct her nipping, and you showed it per person. I just wanted to make sure because I don't want her to fall back into that habit of
nipping. Yes. So there's a couple of different ways. The leash is very important, right? The leash will make it 10 times easier, right? But there's a way, the same way that you would use your leash, you're using your hand, right? It's still a form of a correction, right? So let's say for an example, and again, it's always hard to teach these things if she's not doing it in the moment, right? But let's say she was nipping, and right, let's say she's kind of nipping this hand, right? What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take this hand, matter of fact, I'll do it on you. Here you go, you can actually hold this just so you can feel it, right? So a correction, right, and I'm actually gonna do it on your shoulder. A correction is that.
Okay.
Now, what you don't wanna do is this.
Okay.
You feel the difference?
Yeah.
The difference is, this is, please stop. This is stop. You see, you feel the difference in that?
Yeah.
And that's the same thing you do with the leash when she has the leash on, right? It's a quick, yeah, it's okay, it's okay. Yeah, it's a quick, hey, stop, right? As opposed to what normally, right, this right here, you see, and I know you kind of do it because that's what you're used to, yeah, yep. Because what that dogs have what you call opposition reflex, right? It's the same thing as this, right? I'm gonna do it again. You see what you're doing? You're trying to, yes, dogs do the same thing. So she's pulling, trying to get to that. You're trying to pull her to stop. That's actually enticing her to pull more. So the correction is important is because it goes from tug of war to stop. You see what I mean?
Yeah.
So when it comes to specifically if she doesn't have the leash on, right? If whatever you're doing and she's tugging at this hand, stop. You see? And you can even add no to it because of what that's going to do over time. And she knows what no's mean. But sometimes the word isn't enough. You got to do that physical, right? But over time, the more, it's like the bell curve, right? You'll go from having to do physical more to where the words will take the place of the physical because she's going to associate the word with the physical. So now you can just say no, and because she doesn't want the physical, she will stop, you know, just by the words itself. Yeah, does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, so that's how you stop that. Now, in extreme situations, right, this is why I love this slip leash, right? In extreme situations where she's really like, you know, putting her mouth, I would just take that slip lead.
Yeah, straight up.
Hold it straight up.
Yeah.
Right? And the reason why that's important is because she must understand, right, that certain behaviors stop immediately, right? There's really no nice way to communicate that, especially when she's potentially hurting you, right? The behavior must stop immediately, right? And again, as barbaric as it sounds, she cannot breathe and bite at the same time.
Yeah.
It's physically impossible, right? But obviously you don't want to have to do that forever. But the more efficient you get at correcting her, the quicker she will stop. You see? So it's that, again, it's that curve that you're looking to, but it takes time. So that's why I was saying don't try to be perfect out the gate because she's going to mess up and you're going to mess up. The goal is to, you know, progressively get better, right? So yeah. Anything else?
No, those were that nipping was the biggest concern.
The biggest concern.
Yeah, and just in general, like her reactivity when she sees strangers or even other dogs. Sometimes with other dogs, she's not too bad. Like we took her to like pet supplies once, and she saw a dog and she was fine. She was cool. Yeah, but it's like if it's like there's nothing between her and the dog, she's fine. If it was, we took her to bathe her there, and when she saw that she was in one room, and then she saw another dog walking by on the other side of the window, then she started going crazy. And with humans in general, she was going crazy.
It is reactivity, and that's based out of fear. That's based out of that extreme. The downside to dogs like her, because of how they're bred, if they're not bred with a purpose, right, and not necessarily. There's a difference between breeding a dog because the name of it is German Shepherd and breeding a dog for the purpose of the German Shepherd. Does that make sense? Yeah. And unfortunately, most dogs today are bred because the name of it is German Shepherd. They're not bred for the actual purpose of what the German Shepherd was bred for. So then what happens over time, you breed a whole bunch of dogs that look like a German Shepherd, but the temperament is not of what a German Shepherd is supposed to be. So then you get extreme cases, right? You get a dog that's just totally like, are you actually a dog? Do you do anything? And then you get a dog that does way too much. She's that dog. There's very little middle ground, right? So with dogs like her, and I think I told you guys, because that's genetically how she's wired, she's always going to be like that, right? Now, obviously, we've been working on controlling and managing. That's essentially what we're doing, right? We're doing behavioral management, right? Because she is who she is. She's gonna have moments for the rest of her life.
Only the kids.
Yeah, she's gonna have moments for the rest of her life where she's gonna react like that. But now what you guys have is the tools to redirect that back. You see what I mean? And that's the name of the game.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah. I gave her 2 baths.
Okay.
But because, she's being a dog with other dogs, she's definitely gonna need another bath.
Okay.
A professional bath where they,
there's a place nearby, they messaged me like last week, they're like,
Okay.
oh, she's due for another appointment. When
Gotcha.
she's coming in.
Gotcha, yeah. So yeah, she does need a bath. If you guys wanna feed her, cause I don't feed dogs on the day that I drop them off. So if you wanna feed her, she definitely.
I think her dinner time is definitely like right about coming.
Okay,
Yeah,
okay,
that's
yeah,
perfect
cool.
timing.
Yeah, so, yeah, but other than that, that's pretty much it. That's
Okay,
pretty much it.
perfect.
I'm trying to think if I forgot anything. If you have any questions, you can always reach out in the WhatsApp group. That doesn't go anywhere. You guys do have 3 follow-up sessions. We can actually do those virtually as well. So what I would say is take the next week to 2 weeks just to kind of, get things implemented back. If you have any major issues, of course, reach out.
Okay.
Or if you have any questions at all, reach out. And then after that week to 2 weeks, we can talk about scheduling those follow-up sessions.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah?
Yep.
Cool beans, all right.
Perfect, it was nice
Pleasure.
meeting you.
Absolutely.
Bye.
Thank you.
Nice
Do you guys
meeting
need
you
water
too.
or anything?
No, we're
actually-
fine, thank you.
we
We,
got
we
some
stopped for
stuff.
snacks and
Yeah,
all that. Thank you.
Yeah. Oh, I gotta get a picture.
Oh,
All right, folks. We'll talk to y'all later.